Hello everyone, and thank you very much for joining me in this tutorial. In this video, we will talk about Terraform and how with the help of GenAI, we can deploy a full-fledged infrastructure on AWS. Okay, so at present, if you see, there were 4 instances earlier, but 3 of them have been terminated and one is still active, but it is in stop state. Okay, its name is LangChain board. Now I will come here on my VS Code, which is this, and there is this file called main.py, wherein I have the CLI.interface. Okay, if you do not have the CLI, AWS CLI, please download it from the internet directly from the AWS panel, install it on your device, and then you're good to go. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to simply fire this command python main.py. So it will trigger the code present in main.py. Now what it says is missing argument prompt. So I have to pass a prompt to this main.py, which it can read, and then it can send the same to the other file, which is going to process it, and all that. So I will send a prompt in a way that I will send a prompt which can help me generate at least 2 EC2 instances. Okay, so I'm going to say 2. So I'm saying deploy LLaMA 3 on 2 EC2 instance with Nginx and 8-bit quantization. Okay, if you want, you can modify the prompt as per your requirement. But for now, I am passing this as an argument with main.py. Now it says project generated successfully, estimated hourly cost 0.02. So it has given me the cost also, what AWS will charge me if it deploys this infrastructure on AWS. So I'm okay with it. You must have seen that this code has generated 3 different files for us, and one of the files is this terraform.py file, and it's there in this generated project name folder. So I'm going to simply come here in this outputs, and then let's come in the generated CD generated project. Let me just move it a bit towards the left side. Generated project. So I'm inside this generated project named folder, and now I'm going to do Terraform init. So I'm going to initialize this Terraform. Okay, it will take some time, so let's wait. Okay, so I have initialized it successfully, initiated it successfully. Now it's time for us to apply the Terraform. Okay, so there is a code present in this terraform.py file. Fine, this complete code. I'll tell you how it works and how can you generate these Terraform files. But let me first do an apply. So what this Terraform apply command will do, it will perform all the tasks present in this terraform.py file. Okay, so it says the term. Okay, I think I made a typo. So it will apply all the things present in this terraform.py file. Let me come here, and by the time these things are happening, let me go back on the AWS panel and give it a refresh. So at present, if you see, we don't see any kind of changes here. So we don't see any kind of changes here in this AWS panel, correct? Now coming back to this VS Code, let me just take you through the complete code by the time this Terraform apply is getting compiled. So what happens is when you run this main.py file, this initiates the CLI.interface. Now if you see, there is a CLI named folder inside which we have this interface.py. Now here, let me just come down. Okay, we will have to pass a value to this. So let's say yes. Now here, if you see, we have config as parse input, generated files config, cost, estimated cost. So this is the one which is giving us the total cost of the infrastructure, which will be deployed based on the configuration, which our files will set. Okay, so let's come here in this parse underscore input first. So here in this compiler named folder, okay, we have all the required files. The first thing that comes is this parser. So what happens is when we pass the command argument or prompt here along with main.py, this is the file which stores it, which reads it, and then it processes the prompt, check the number of instances the person has passed in the prompt. It checks for the model, whether it is LLaMA 1, LLaMA 2, right, and all that. Then it checks the quantization. So I passed 8-bit. If you remember, you can pass 16-bit, 32-bit based on your requirement. Then it checks for Nginx, and finally it checks for the region where the user want to deploy the infrastructure, and then it prepares a config. This is what gets returned by this parser.py. We have generator.py. Now what this generator.py does is it takes this templates named folder, right, whatever code is present in this Docker file, in this inference.py file, and in this Terraform file. Okay, so we have a code here, but here if you see, we are passing arguments, not the exact values. Okay, so this is what you will have to create yourself based on the kind of infrastructure you want to deploy on AWS. And once you're done with that, this generator.py file will take all these files from your templates, and it will generate the files like terraform.tf, inference.py file inside this generated project. And this is what you can then apply using Terraform apply. Let me come here on this AWS infrastructure and give it a refresh. Let's see whether the instances have got deployed or not. So I'll have to refresh it from here. Now we can see 2 instances here which are in running state. There are 3 which are in terminated, and there is 1 which is already stopped. Okay, so we have successfully created the instances. Now, how will we log in into these instances? So there is this public key that we have passed as an input. Okay, now the private key of this is also present on my device, which I will be using for logging into the server. So here I'm going to put the IP address of the server which I've got created, and user is going to be Ubuntu, and then advanced SSH settings, private key, and I'm going to use the private key which I generated on my local, the public key of which I've passed as an input parameter. Okay, so this is the one. This is the one which I passed as an input parameter, and this is the private key. Let me do an open, and then let me do a, so I've successfully logged in into the server. Correct. Let me see if Docker is present here or not. So Docker PS, if I am doing, it says permission denied. Let me do sudo docker PS. So I can see container ID image. So there is no container at present, but yes, Docker is installed on this device. That is the reason this command is working for us. Okay. So this is the way you can deploy the infrastructure using these simple files. If you want to deploy some other complex infrastructure, you can modify these 3 files accordingly. And then with the help of only 2 commands, you can deploy the complete infrastructure on AWS without putting manual efforts. Now let's assume that you want to get rid of all the infrastructure you have deployed. So you have to simply do Terraform destroy. So what it will do, it will destroy everything it has created. Okay, by the time it is destroying the things, let me take you through the remaining code. So we have this estimator.py, which is estimating for us the cost of the infrastructure. Okay, the configuration of which we have put in these files over here. Okay, and then we have this bundler.py. So it bundles everything which gets generated inside this generated underscore project and gives us this zip file. So if you want, you can simply run the Terraform apply command from here, from this terminal, or else you can unzip this complete zip file. What is there in the zip file? Let me just show that also to you. Docker file, inference, terraform.tf. These are the same files which we have here in this generated underscore project name file. Okay, so it's a very, very simple code. Terraform is very simple to understand, nothing complicated. If you are familiar with AWS and the EC2 instances and all its features, I think Terraform is something which can help you, which helps you in automating things. That's it. Okay, it makes things simpler for you rather than going on AWS or any other cloud platform and doing everything manually, right? Creating things manually or destroying things manually. You can use Terraform for automating the complete manual process. And why it's a GenAI project? Because we are passing a prompt here. So we are using prompt engineering. Okay, and this prompt is then passed as an input parameter to this parser.py, which understands the input, and then accordingly it creates the config here. Fine, that's the reason it is categorized into the GenAI. Take the code from this GitHub, okay, and then you can also try it on your local device. Let me just show you this AWS panel of mine. So as you can see, now the 2 instances which got created earlier, we see them as terminated, okay, and the other one is stopped. The ones which were already in terminated state, now we cannot see them anymore. Okay, so this is the complete automation thing that you can do easily with the help of Terraform. That is it from my side in this lecture. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Bye bye, take care, and have a great day, guys.